Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. Basketball Rewind, of course. I am joined by Greg. Greg, do you mind if I plug your YouTube handles or any of your handles down in the description below for later, so people can
Nah,
find you,
man,
I guess?
that'd be awesome, man. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to kind of plug yourself in terms of your Twitter account right
Yeah.
now?
My name is Greg. I cover the Spurs along with my one of my good friends, Marshall Best. We go by Spurs versus Everybody, and you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. That's primarily the major social media outlets we're at. So if you give us a follow or check us out, if you like our content, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm just grateful to be on this platform right now and be able to talk Spurs basketball with one of my newfound Twitter friends over there in
Absolutely.
Raptor space.
Absolutely. So yeah, for my viewers, yes, again, Basketball Rewind, we don't only talk about the Raptors, we will talk about other teams. Just as a preamble for everyone, there will be, I believe there's a couple of reporters from different teams that we'll have on throughout the season. One is actually going to be for the OKC Thunder. Obviously, I'm going to ask about Shea, just so people know. But for today, we're going to be talking about the Spurs. Before we get into the Spurs themselves, how did you start watching the Spurs? How did you get into basketball? Tell me a little bit about how you got into this, because clearly it's a sport that you love, because I see you on there all the time. So yeah, how did you get into basketball, man?
Man, what really made me fall in love, I mean, obviously, Allen Iverson, man. Iverson, just being who he was, just being a cultural icon and kind of, being different and have swag and be able to play the game. And, it was just an exciting time. The Spurs, obviously, I'm born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. There's a lifeblood within our city tied into the Spurs. We're a big city that has a small feel, and it's pretty much, it was for a long time the Alamo Spurs. Some synonymously the two things us for. Um, I love the Spurs because they're what they do on and off the court and the style of brand of basketball they play. They're heavily in the community, obviously doing a bunch of things to support our city and be partners with within the city, and that's really much appreciated. The way they hold themselves to this higher standard and the way they play unselfish basketball. It's just I've always fell in love with passing. Mono Ginobili, just being a orthodox kind of a herky jerky, one of the more herky jerky players in the beginning. His passing ability, the unselfishness, the pay cuts they took to win championship all together, stay together. It was just a beautiful brand of basketball that I fell in love with, and it's been a journey, man. It's been fun. It's been 20 plus years of playoff basketball, and then we've hit a little rut recently, and luckily, fate has shined upon us, and now we're thrusted back into the forefront of the media and the world. Now drafting number one overall pick, Victor Wembanyama.
Absolutely. So I'm just sorry, you sparked my memory, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Manu for a second.
Yeah.
One of the things that I loved about Manu was he had a tendency to jump out of the play, use his long arms, and swing a pass out to one of the corners. Have you ever seen that since? Because he is one of the only people that I've seen do that on a regular basis, and it's really an amazing skill.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about one of the greater passers of all time. I mean, just some of he's one of the guys where you say like, wow, I didn't never seen that before.
Yeah.
Obviously, see some synonymous with the Euro step. He did, he definitely showed a little bit of the sham god at times.
Early on too.
Yeah, early on, like he just,
Like
I think more popular now, especially now. You obviously familiar with Toronto's basketball scene. SGA is obviously a popular name within and they all have this certain offbeat rhythm. They call it offbeat kind of player. When you're playing basketball, subconsciously or consciously, when you're guarding somebody, you're picking up their tendencies and what the way they move, and everybody similarly moves, and you collect data over time as you do that. Players like SGA, Brunson, even and obviously Manu, they move to a different beat. They move to a different rhythm that makes them really hard to guard, and it was just really beautiful, and I'm glad to see it. But to answer your question, no, it's very like you see Jokic, someone like that, be able to just like dissect a defense like that. It's just that's one of the more beautiful aspects of basketball is the passing.
Absolutely. I grew up. I'm not like a Spurs fan, but
Yeah.
my team. I grew up in Vancouver. My team left, of
Oh yeah.
course.
Mm-hmm.
So I started watching a lot of other teams, and that includes the Raptors, obviously. But being in the western part of Canada, being
Mm-hmm.
in a place where, frankly, our broadcast was not always the best at showcasing. Sometimes curling was on more
Mm-hmm.
than basketball. I would have to consume basketball in different ways, and usually that was watching a lot of the American West Coast teams, or I really did watch the Grizzlies for a long period of time. Shout out to Hubie Brown, of course, really good coach when he was coaching the Grizzlies. People didn't think that they'd be that good, but he's a good coach. So, um, back to the Spurs, though, of course. So we zoom forward today. Obviously, we're great trade partners all the time, so I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll talk more.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I wrote down some things that I wanted to talk about. We're obviously going to start off with Wemby. So my notes were he has a slim build, but he's cartoonishly long appendages, and he has a southern-sized portion of body control.
Mm-hmm.
So far, the other thing that I said is that the Spurs preach development, and they place a huge emphasis on obviously fundamentals, traditional skill sets, as well as skill sets that have seemingly been lost on the game, especially in today's game. Fundamentals that have been preached, focused on so much by one of the greatest bigs to ever walk through your franchise, who is named the Big
Big
Fundamental.
fundamental.
And yet, Wemby is a prospect who is the furthest thing from a fundamental person. Even his game to me is not fundamental because holy smokes, this dude is different. I've never seen he's like he does things, even his progression from summer league till now.
Yeah.
I've You rarely see that. So you let me know. First of all, what do you feel like he's improved upon since summer league? But what do you think of Wemby? Um,
Man, just create a character, man. It's like you really like, wow, like this guy, the fluidity at he measured it in at 7'3" in socks, 7'3" and a half in socks. So you imagine he's another inch or 2 inches with shoes on, close to 7'5", 7'6". His fluidity, the willingness to try different things, the wanting to be different, to wanting to be great. Just hearing him talk is something special too, just to dip into his mind. I mean, obviously some of the greatest players are physically gifted. They're fundamentally master fundamentals and details, but it really comes, and Popovich has preached about it. It comes from up here, thinking the game out. And just hearing him talk and the way he talks and the way he's dedicated to being great, from keeping his body, his stretching routine. He goes to bed at a certain time, eats stuff certain times. His process and wanting to learn, like asking the greats. Obviously we've surrounded him with the greatest players of all time. Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Manu. He has resources for him, and he's asking questions like, "Hey, Darren, on the road, when should you suggest I get my sleep in? When should I do this and that?" He's already thinking like that, those things. And it's just amazing to hear. Yeah, he's got. I mean, he's got to learn to. We got Popovich mentioned it. We got to really look at him, just study him for the first year, kind of let him be free, let him play his game. He's really focused on, don't confine me to anything, don't confine me to a position, don't confine me to doing one thing. Just being a pick and roll big, pick and pop big. Let me do different things. Let me explore the game, and we're going to explore it. We're going to check and see movement shooting. We're going to check and see, obviously post up, pick and roll plays. Ball as a ball handler, getting downhill, getting put in situations where he can get downhill is probably the best area. He's got to learn to keep his dribble low, right? That's going to be the one thing we saw with Chet and him, is when he gets in close confined places within the paint, there are going to be a lot of long arms, a lot of people poking at the ball. And
Sometimes I've noticed he almost needs to also remember his size when he
yeah.
gets the ball down low. Because it's like I remember, I forget who it was in summer league. Might have been City, or it might have
Mm.
been someone else, and they were just like, just go up.
Yeah.
Just just go up, man. Like you're right there. So,
And that
uh,
translates to basketball and like other sports too. Like some of these the freakier athletes forget that they're huge, right? Like, and you're just like, just go. Like, you have somebody like Scotty Barnes. We've seen Ben Simmons. They're like they play like like guards, and they're able to do certain things that you're like shocked by. But then sometimes you're like, oh, just remember you're big too, like and force your will onto somebody, and that's something he's definitely got to learn to learn to dominate the game in a physical manner. And he's put on size, he's put on strength over time. He looks a little bit more bigger than he did in summer league, even when he came into the league. So it's gonna be a process, and I'm just really excited. He just got to. I mean, he's just 19, so he's got to learn like what his game is, what his spots are. Time and place, how to get your teammates involved. He's got to figure out all these things, but he has a good innate feel for the game. He really thinks the game out. He wants to play unselfish. He wants to play the right way, and that's all you can really ask for a 19-year-old kid with so much expectation on him.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good thing that he came through the French league as well because they learn a
Yeah.
lot of discipline in that league, which is good. You hear stories about his parents and just a lot of stories about him. Maybe I might link some down below, but it seems like he has always had a good support system. And I think that that's really one of the most important things coming into this type of league. Like he came in like, I want to be one of the best and I have a plan on how I'm going to do that. And I will take and learn whatever. I will say this, since he speaks French, would have been nice to have him in Canada. Just would have been, just gonna put that out there. So, but yeah, actually, it's funny. Whenever it's like Pascal or any player that speaks French, I actually do listen to their French interviews. Same thing with Wemby when I've listened because I'm not the best at it, but I'm trying to get better. Because I know French, Spanish. Are the two languages that I'm trying to get better at, just as a side note, but that's a whole other
Ooh,
thing.
nice.
And once you learn one, it's, because I used to be decent, poquito.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Or in French, un peu, at speaking it. So, but anyways, before I get into anything else, we want to talk about the swing skills. Obviously, the shooting is going to be important for him,
Mm,
especially since he likes to play out on the perimeter so far.
yeah.
But one of the things that I noticed, beyond the fact that his everything is just improved, is his defense is going to be his calling card. I could go on and on about it. The first thing that I noticed is that his length and the speed and agility changes the timing of everyone. I mean, Kyrie yesterday, this is filmed after the first first real game, sorry.
Mhm.
Uh, and Kyrie is someone who can finish around whatever, the story with him and the weird backboard growing up or whatever.
Yeah.
And he even got caught by surprise.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how to describe it, but I'll let you go for it because I see him like even within the next 2 years potentially being on an all defense team if he can stay, on the court for long enough.
Yeah, definitely. It's a mixture of mobility and just freakish length, like 8 foot wingspan. Moves very, ungodly fluidly. Like you're talking about, like 7'5" Bam. Like he's able to really, get into guards. I mean, no one's really had the experience of being able to shoot over. They don't really realize how much ground he can cover pretty quickly and his quick reaction time. So they try. He likes to go for blocks on top of the perimeter, and he'll catch you. Um, he'll get his fair share of fouls, of course, but he definitely will be able to block. Just anticipating and be able, and people not realizing how much ground he can cover between them. He can cover a whole side of the court. Like that just changes the complexion of our defense. I mean, I think what I've learned is like I looked at somewhere like Miami. They really most of the defenses are geared to play like I want to say like prevent defense. They play like drop coverage. They give you a certain play, and they're able to. But I think Miami's done a good job of mixing things up, going to zone, being a full court press. blitzing, doing different things because they believe that you don't want to offense and players to catch rhythm in this league. Because if they do catch rhythm, then it's impossible to stop some of these guys once they catch that rhythm. And I think that's definitely something. We could throw a zone. I mean, Sohan's length, Vassell's length. Throw a zone out there real quickly, and he can cover up a lot of the court himself. I mean, he can play the off end passing lanes. I mean, eventually you would hope that he would be able to at least close at the 5 and be the primary rim protector, and that eliminates the pick and roll, right? His ability to kind of like play not only the ball handler but also the guy behind him, because how big he is and how agile he is, really takes that component out of it, which we're in a pick and roll league, right? It's hunting matchups, his ability to switch on the perimeter onto players. I mean, it just he does so many things that you could explore on the defensive end that is definitely gonna help one of the, it was like historically worst defenses in the NBA last year. So it's definitely something that's like, okay, this is a game changer for the Spurs.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just, I think, did he block Clay? I know
Yeah,
he
he
blocked
blocked.
Wiggins.
Yeah, because he blocked Clay off copying because Keldon was trying to catch him, and Clay came off a curl screen, and they had Wemby positioned correctly. Like, hey, Clay's going to come off the screen. Keldon's not going to be able to necessarily stay with him enough. Be right there, and you'll be able to catch him. He was able to catch him and
I
block him.
mean, Clay has one of the fastest releases
Yeah.
in the league, and it's just again the timing of like, do I have it's going to be interesting because I feel like it might end up playing mind games on people in series
Yeah.
because it's like you'll have to like space the floor out even more, which in some cases you're at the maximum, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I'm always going to love those Spurs Warriors games from now on. The
Yeah.
other one is obviously Chet on OKC. That seems like a budding rivalry. I really was
Yeah.
impressed with how they just went at one another. I'm glad that they're in the same conference. Um, Now, no offense to Chet, he is my rookie of the year pick, but
Mhm.
uh, I think that Wemby has better footwork than
Yeah.
him. Like, holy smokes! But yeah, what did you think of that game? I know it wasn't a regular season game, but
I love Chet, man. He has that innate dog in him. You can tell he's a competitor. He has really good spatial awareness, really good timing. He has the physical tools. Now I think what separates him and Wemby long term is just the physical tools. Like, it's just a big difference in what they can do. Chet right now may be more technical, advanced than Wemby, but as Wemby grows and learns and perfects the fundamentals and understanding, I think just having the bigger physical tools unlocks a higher ceiling for him. But Chet's an impressive player. I mean, he can. It's unfortunate they didn't play each other. Like, it was Wemby was really at the 4, and then Chet was at the 5 with that Collins. They didn't really match up. I would like to see that matchup, but yeah. Chet's a really, I mean, he can handle the ball. He can pull up and shoot. He can, push the ball in transition. He's a complete player, man. He's going to be a really good player for a long time if he stays healthy.
yeah, very very high floor for both players, of
Yeah.
course. I think staying healthy is going to be the key thing, but I'm excited for that team, of course. Two
Yeah.
Canadians bringing home the hardware this year, coming into the league.
Yeah. Shout out to Canada, man. They're really becoming a pipeline for the NBA, man. It's definitely, like, you see the talent is just
It's taking
oozing
some
out.
time. Taking some
Yeah,
time.
it's been impressive to watch.
But I'm just happy to see people actually want to play. Like, it's like you
Yeah.
have to the point where we're saying, well, I don't know if all these guys can play on the team. That's a nice thing.
Mhm.
Anyways, that's hey, I don't think that they have pop coaching anymore. So at least we got that going for us.
Yeah.
Olympics will be exciting to watch, of course. So you already kind of touched on one of my other topics I was going to talk about, which is best way to use them. And you're basically saying that like Pop is just going to like, you know, see what we have in him. The interesting thing is, so I was talking to Beyond, of course. We were talking, away from the channel a little bit. I think some of it got into the Western Conference final standings talk, but we were talking a little bit about Wemby and um, the Spurs in general and how much better that he makes the Spurs this year from the little that we've seen, of course. My question is, I know that Pop will, they'll put him on a vent if they have to keep him going, right? But with him getting older, do you think that Wemby could be good enough that within the first 2 years that they might speed this thing up?
I think definitely that's definitely a situation. I think this is a big trial year to see how quickly he adapts to the NBA, what he looks like in year one, what our team looks like in year one. Like if say we in the play hunt, right, we're a 9-10 seed right away, maybe they do look, with their assets, with situations, they find a piece to kind of speed this thing along and keep growing and keep going rather than I don't necessarily know if they can do the OKC thing where they kind of like take their time and like really
I,
plan this. I
I
know
don't
they would
I don't
want
think
to.
Pop has that much time.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like, but he feels it. Like
Yeah.
there's reports about Steve Kerr giving an interview about Pop's rejuvenating now because he knows that he's got a talent that is that supreme that he can win again. And that's last year. Pop was always like, "We got to play together. We don't have talent. We don't have the players necessary." Mono, Tim, and Tony ain't walking through that door. We have to play together. We have to play a certain style of basketball to compete every night. And now he's got a talent. And now I feel like he loves coaching the young guys. He loves coaching in period and helping raise men and good people. And it's always been his life mission. But like he's also a competitor. Like you don't become one of the all-time greatest coaches, not being an ultimate competitor. So he wants to compete and he wants to try to win. And being able to get Victor like that, and then now he's like, all right, let's go get it. I'm ready. Like, let's make it happen. And so, God willing, I would love to send him off with a ring. That'd be a beautiful story for him to go full circle and kind of renew, kind of like, some people are like, oh, we can't win. He's not going to win anymore. You're going to have Tim, whatever. And it's true. Like, it takes supreme talent to win in this league. Like, you got to have the best, and you got to be organizationally on par with everybody and it's a lot of things, but it takes talent. And
I
so
mean,
for
even when you had Tim, you needed other
yeah,
guys as well.
yeah, it is not Tim. I mean, Tim's one of the all time greatest players of all time, of course, but you
I
need
mean,
other.
I keep telling people that he's sometimes he's disrespected. I'm not naming no names. I'm just saying he's
Yeah,
like literally. Depending on how you view him, I view him as a power forward.
yeah,
In terms of that position, the best of all
yeah.
time. Like not the best.
And he
And the
competed during.
gap from him to the next is there's a gap, and I think that the gap with other positions is arguably depending on the position is a lot closer from number one and number two sometimes. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and when you go looking back where he played
mhm.
during the era, that was the era of the big man and the power forward. So he played against the best of the best. Like every team was stacked with an all-star level power forward at pretty much one time. You had Rasheed Wallace's, Chris Webber's, Kevin Garnett's. You had Jermaine O'Neal's of the world. I mean, you had everybody had a power forward. Paul Gasol. You had different everybody. They was stacked, and he was our Dirk Nowitzki. Like it's just like you go
the
down the list,
list goes on.
and he was able to be at the top of that, and that's just it's been I've been very fortunate to be like to be a Spurs fan, right? They make fun of us, David Robinson, George Gervin, Tim Duncan, now Victor, Manu and Tim. I mean, Manu and Tony. Like I've been blessed to have really great players play for the Spurs organization. So and hopefully it continues with Victor.
Don't know players body slamming coaches. I hope that's happened for the Raptors. So it's like it's nice to have some normalcy on a franchise. I think. But with that being said, um, really quickly, I know we've only talked about one guy. You have a whole team. Uh, what do you think about the man who just signed a contract, Mr. Devin Vassell? Obviously, there's also Jeremy Sohan, as well as I think it's Keldon Johnson. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
And
The other
so, Yeah,
I guess we
your
can start with
starting lineup is 6'5", 6'5", 6'9", 6'11", 6'4", if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, 6'5" Vessel, 6'5" Keldon, Jeremy's 6'8", 6'9". You got Victor 7'5", 7'6", and then Zach Collins like 6'11".
Yeah.
So they definitely they call a tall, big lineup. I mean, obviously, Raptors fans are familiar with tall length and athleticism.
Yep.
So and that's where the league is trending. Like I've been talking about for a couple of years now. It's like the talented big men are coming back, and it's going to start to become a different, bigger, more talented league if those people stay healthy. The Chets, the Mobleys, and you already got Jokic and you got Cat, you got Anthony Davis still hanging in there. You got a plethora of bigs that are in here, and there are going to be more coming. So
Absolutely. In terms of the Devin, of
yeah,
course.
Devin.
What are your thoughts on Devin? I haven't watched him as
Mm.
much, as other players that I typically watch. Last year with the Spurs, I did not watch a lot of Spurs games, so I will admit
Mm.
that.
All right, it's all right. A lot of people didn't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, what do you think of him?
Came in as a 3-and-D prospect, primarily, and as he's with more every year he's improved his efficiency, and he's been given more usage, and his numbers have gone up every year to the point where now I've always been questionable about his defense and the defensive effort he puts on that side of the floor. I've always felt like he was more of a hooper or more of a bucket getter in essence. And he's kind of progressed that way more than like I think people thought more he'd be more, a 3-and-D more role player ish. And he's been able to transition to an elite shooter, shooting close to, 38% last year. He could be close to 40% this year on high volume. He's perfected the mid range. He's one of the top mid range scorers in the league. The next evolution for his game, if he wants to be that 3-level scorer, is get to the rim and get fouled. He's one of the worst drivers in the league. He's one of the worst finishers in the league. He doesn't draw fouls. That's the never evolution of his game. And so if he's able to do that, then you're starting to talk about like going from maybe a third option like a Michael Porter, Desmond Bain kind of player, like a Klay Thompson kind of off ball shooter, uh, player to possibly maybe a number 2 on a championship team. That's kind of like, and he got paid accordingly, like a number 3 option, I believe, about 27 million a year. That's a good contract if he keeps whatever he is right now. If he just stops progressing right now, and he stops, that's a very fair contract for what locking him in. So, and he's only improved. So thoughts are that there's another jump for him, and I believe he'll be in the MIP conversation this year. And especially with all the media attention that we will get this year, I think you'll start to see him blossom. So he is a bright future. The Spurs think so too by locking him up for 5 years.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned sorry, you didn't mention footwork. You mentioned mid-range.
Hmm.
One question that I have, because even the Spurs with the beautiful game and all that, they had for most of their championships a mid-range shooter. Do you think that
Yep.
the mid-range has kind of been undervalued, I'll say, in
Yeah.
recent years by fans? Because everyone seems to want just the threes and the
Raise the
layups and
layups.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, I get it as a Raptors fan. I hear you people, but I was
Mhm.
like, we won it with Kawhi, like who
Yeah.
was like literally the best mid-range shooter at the time when he was
Yeah.
there, and it was like basically like when we got Kawhi, it was like this guy's like DeMar with zero like downside. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so yeah, like what are your thoughts on A, the mid range, and then B, do you think that I think certain fundamental skills we were talking about, just to bring it full circle, do you think that they've kind of been undervalued even by players at sometimes? I mean, you heard Zion say, I'm not learning no footwork. It's like you might have to change your game if you keep getting injured, man.
Yeah.
So
That's definitely that takes you from uh a long career like someone like DeMar's had because of his footwork and his ability to consistently score to someone that being an all-time, he's going to be one of the top scorers in the league. I mean, all-time list eventually whenever he stops playing. That footwork matters. Like a lot of people will just live off athleticism, like Zion's talking about. He's just going to live off his strength, natural God given talent,
Mhm.
and if that stays with him, great. But most likely, you're going to age and you're going to start to lose a step. You're going to start to lose some of that. And what do you have to fall back on? It's like intellect and your footwork and your. So yeah, there's those skills, and you're seeing it more prevalently taught overseas, right? Especially with the big man coming in from the overseas, is like they're fundamentally sound. They play within a team construct, and those things are kind of lost on American players. And I think that's why you've seen the overlap of like American players kind of fade a little bit, and a lot of overseas European players come in and kind of dominate within the league because they play at an early age, taught at an early age to play a certain way and play. We call it the right way over here in San Antonio. Within team construct. So
It's almost like the game is becoming homogenized where it's like everyone, at least through AAU circuits, is learning like the same thing, the same,
yeah,
uh, the same way to play. And then it's almost like everyone's trying to be like a Harden, for example, or a
yeah,
Zach Levine. And it's like, that's nice. Those skills are important. Um, I'll actually focus on Harden because I think Zach Levine's a better at getting to his spots in the mid range than Harden. Um, but it's funny, like even Dirk started off with three. He turned into a mid range shooter during the year that they won the championship,
mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
so it's funny. Sorry, you were saying.
yeah. Elite scorers tend to get to love their mid range, right? To exploit that, because if the game is about threes and get and layups, right? Your defense is going to be geared to stop that. So what are the spaces that are open
Yep.
to exploit? That would be the mid range, and I think that's the theory behind the Spurs is like, if they're going to take away from us, let's have mid range people that can exploit the open spots, the Kawhis, the Aldridges. We got DeMar obviously because of that notion, and then we will get layer that around with 3-point shooting, movement shooting, guys that can hit, that can operate, in certain spots and spot up correctly in the corners.
Right.
And we'll pair those two skill sets and overlap them in a way where we can exploit the whole court. And I think that's what the Spurs have done. Their thought process and taking the good shot, making the extra pass to get the good shot, right? If I'm a 32% shooter and I can pass it to a guy that's 45 in the corner, why don't I just make the right pass? Right up. So
Absolutely. Really quickly, I am paying attention to the clock for you. I have two more things that I wanted to talk about really quickly. So the first thing is just, what is one type of player that if you could add to this team for this year, you don't have to say the name, just like a type of player if you want to. So we don't want any fans getting in an uproar. So,
I would love another combo. I mean, I think the league is about being big and having big point guard combo guards.
Mm.
Obviously, I think Jamal Murray would probably be the best archetype of player, shot creator.
I'm hoping he
efficient.
comes home.
Yeah, like if you want to add another elite shooter next to another elite shooter in Devin Vassell and kind of start to spread the floor and kind of let Wemby operate one-on-one a lot, or if he's going to get doubled, to be able to kick it out to somebody. I think that's the perfect archetype that I would go after, someone like that, or a rim pressure guard like of De'Aaron Fox that can just get downhill whenever he wants and gets wherever he wants on the court at all times.
Yeah. I mean, De'Aaron Fox. Oh man, no one can keep up to him.
No.
Also, another Kentucky guard. I love Kentucky guards. Which,
Oh
by
yeah,
the way,
always bet on them. Always bet on Kentucky guards.
I keep telling people Case and Wallace. Okay, don't tell me otherwise. Everyone's like Ty. I'm like, no, he ain't Ty. No offense to Ty. Case and Wallace is he's a dude. By the way, shot perfect from the line yesterday. But anyways, what I will say, the other thing is, how do you think that they'll do? I can't remember what their over under is. I don't have it up on hand. I think it was like 27 or 28, but
Yeah, it starts fluctuating. It went from 29 all the way down to like 27 and a half now.
Yeah, so where do you have them finishing? Obviously, you live in a place and you watch a team that is in a division that it doesn't seem like they'll have a lot of. What I say when I say pushover teams, I mean Portland didn't
Yeah,
look very good yesterday. But
yeah,
what I will say is that one of the way, the rest of the teams like Houston, regardless of the amount of wins that they get this year, they are at least going to try to get wins.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of competitive teams in the West, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of competitive, but there's also low key a lot of question marks on a lot of teams, especially specifically health wise.
Yep.
You can go from the Pelicans, you can go down to the Clippers, you can
Phoenix.
Phoenix. I mean, the Golden State. You know, anything happens to Curry or Draymond, that's it. And Clay looks, a shell of himself right now.
I mean, they're small too. Like
Yeah.
If Golden State's gonna put CP3 in the line up, it's weird. I actually am excited for the Raptors to play them because I think we match up really well against them. It's just like
Yeah.
okay, CP3, all right, cool. Like,
You have the whole Jaw situation.
yes, yes, and
So
Steven Adams too.
yeah, Steven Adams going down. I mean, there's a lot of question marks with a lot of teams. And Timberwolves, like, is the cat thing gonna work? What is? I mean, obviously, I feel like he's on the way out if they're signing.
Hey, if
Jay.
he wants to pass to Rudy Gobert in the post any day, all day, I will
Yeah.
take that. Thank you for yesterday, by the way. Um, yeah, man, Rudy, like, respect to him, but it's like, man, you can't even like. I get it, it's OG, but like,
Mm,
you're that size, you can't handle like catching a post entry pass. That's rough. But yeah, so do you see
yeah.
them winning above, say, 30 games?
Yeah, I have them 32 to 35. I think the major things that we need to I think the three-point shooting will be better. Obviously, I think the defense will be better. We'll be throwing out better lineups. Our players only played 24 games together. I think the defense will be the intensity will be there. The obviously adding Wemby is going to help defensively a lot too. Um,
Yep.
so I think 3-point shooting will be better. The X factor is rebounding and the bench. Are they going to be good enough? Are we going to be able to rebound good enough to finish defensive possessions? And is the bench going to be giving us enough juice to win enough games to do that? And health too. I mean, you have an 8-foot rookie. Sohan dealt with injuries last year. Devin Vassell's coming off a medical procedure.
Yep.
Um, Zach Collins, our backup, Charles Bassey has a history throughout their career being injured. I mean, Trey Jones is a small point guard. I mean, if you can get nicked and bruised pretty quickly and then lose pace really quickly, and then the organization can be like, hey, let's take this, let's think about competing this year. Maybe we, dial it back a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
So it's a lot of factors, but I think I really want to say they get 32, 35 wins.
and looking at the West as a whole,
Yeah.
I know it's the beginning of the year. This is way too early to make these things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to say you're one, two, three, up to four, who are they? What are you ranking? Obviously, Denver's probably going to be in
Yeah.
there, and I'm guessing Phoenix may be in there. Although I'll be honest with you, as I said to people on Twitter Spaces and stuff like that, I do think that Phoenix is a contender, but I do not think that they are not a flawed. They're not a flawed contender because they are a flawed contender.
Yeah. I mean, they got some questions to figure out. I mean, obviously, a lot of people criticize the Nurkic situation, but
Mhm.
he's been a good screener, good passer, good rebounder situation for them. So maybe that's something they needed to let their shooters and scorers, get clean looks.
So your 1 through 4 for the West
Is
would be
Denver? I'm gonna go controversial. I know this team gets a lot of like this team shouldn't even make the playoffs. A lot of hype last year, but the Kings, I think, continuity wise, I think they'll stay healthy again, and I think
okay.
offensively they're just gonna put the pedal to the metal, and they're gonna be like a regular season uh, team. So I have them up there. This is where it gets really tricky for me, man, because there's a lot of
I
question
trust
marks.
me.
Right?
I just did the standings with
I'll
Beyond
throw
and Coach.
I'll throw the Suns in there
Okay.
just because there's a lot of firepower between Bill Booker and KD. I think they can make another move or two to get something else if they really need it. And then you start to think about. I think the Lakers will be there. I think the Lakers will be there. Man, it's AD's hell too. Just AD and LeBron now. Like
That's the tough thing. They
yeah,
like the Lakers to me are one of the most variable teams. If AD suddenly says it's my house now,
yeah.
right? Finally, and he's like locked in and he's healthy for 65 games and you get your 55 from LeBron, like
Yeah.
that's a squad, right? But that's a
I think they
question.
need. I think they need another. I think they need a offensive star. I
I
think
think so
that's.
too.
I think Reeves is a good role player. I think Torian Prince will possibly step up as a 3-and-D wing. Um, I think AD and LeBron can carry their weight, but I think they still need a shot creating uh two-way probably guard. I would look at someone like Mikal Bridges. I think if you take D'Angelo Russell out and put Mikal Bridges in that situation, I think now you start to look at like, okay, I got a little more juice here to take it.
Yes. Yes. I don't think Mikal Bridges is going anywhere this season, but
Yeah.
he would fit perfectly
Yeah.
on a lot of teams. I mean, I wouldn't mind him
Yeah.
on the Raptors, to be honest. But with that being said, I think it's been good. I'm definitely gonna have you on here. Sorry, I know like I said, I'm keeping track of the time.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
So with that being said, it's been fun. We're definitely gonna talk more about the Spurs. We're gonna have see where you stack up between now and say even February.
Mm.
Obviously, we're probably going to talk because, I don't know, somehow Doug McDermott is going to find his way on my team or something. So, Jakob
Darko,
Pertl might be
Darko,
back.
Darko, Masai, call us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So at some point we need to put a block on Masai's phone. You know, but with that being said, it's been fun having you on here. Again, is there anything that you're up to that you want to plug before we get out of here?
I will be doing post game on Twitter. I will be trying to do post game on YouTube's pre-game, post games, either and vice versa. I'll be posting Instagram content. I just wanted to say, man, I really appreciate you having me on. This has been a great experience. I'm lucky enough to lucky enough to meet you and connect with you, and you've been nothing but welcoming, within the Raptors community and just overall in general. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Hey man, I just love having good basketball conversation. That's really what it's about every day. Not all day, but a lot of the day.
Yeah.
And it's going to be less and less people, just so people know. We're kind of moving towards more of a once a week with occasional, like this episode is probably going to be in the middle of a week. But in general, I'm always down to talk hoops. Always appreciate all the conversations that we have, of course. And before I really get out of here, people like, comment, subscribe, and go give there we go, this man a follow.
Thank you. Spurs versus everybody. Check us out.
All right. Link in the description. Peace.